That's it. I'm not touching it anymore. That's it. The podcast begins now.
Begin! Welcome to the Play to Win podcast, where we talk about winning in cEDH. I'm Cam.
I'm Dylan.
I'm Tyler.
And this week, we're going to be doing our cEDH set review for the new set, Phyrexia All Will Be One.
All will be one. That's what it's called. Yeah.
I will be two. I thought it was two.
No. It's certainly one. I'm
All
sure of
will
it.
be two fast
Electric
and two
Boogaloo?
furious.
All will be one fast and one furious, and it's Elish Norn, and she's pissed.
She's the one.
She's furious.
Yeah, she's furious.
furious.
She's
Okay.
fast and she's furious. Let's talk about it. All
Great.
will be one.
All right.
Roll the tape.
Gail Gadget plays Hellish Norn. All right, so we're going to start off this time. We normally do these by color, but this time we're going to do it by type here. So
Yeah, why are we switching it up?
because the first three cards that we would have talked about were just going to be Winota cards. And this way we get to
Let's space them out a little bit
yeah,
now.
we get to pepper in Winota cards now this time instead of exclusively talking about one deck. So we're going to start off with Skrelv. How do you say this card, Tyler?
Tyler, help us out.
Skrelv. I think Skrelv.
It's
yeah.
Skrelv?
That's how I read it.
It's just a bunch of just consonants shoved together.
You are just gonna love Russian.
Spell it for me real quick.
Skrelv.
Yeah, that does seem tricky. Okay, what does this one do?
So this is a white for a 1/1 legendary artifact creature, Phyrexian Might. It has Toxic 1, which says players dealt combat damage by this creature also get a poison counter. It can't be blocked. And for a Phyrexian white mana and tap it, you can choose a color. Another target creature you control gains Toxic 1 and Hexproof from that color until end of turn. It can't be blocked by creatures of that color until end of turn. It's not protection because you could still enchant it. Oh, no, wait, no, it has Hexproof. So, no, you still can't enchant it. Shit. No.
Damn it. Well, funny enough, we're talking about a Winota card right away, right? Is that why we're talking about this card?
Immediately a Winota card here.
It has Toxic. I don't think Toxic is going to do anything, though, right?
No.
Toxic is just bad Infect, and we already have Infect cards. From what I can tell, Toxic is just less good because pump spells don't work with it.
But we should make sure to say that every time we see Toxic on a card.
Every time. Toxic's not good, right?
Toxic's not good.
Okay,
No,
yeah.
Toxic
Just
is
make
not
sure to.
It doesn't matter.
I mean, probably there is a way to make it good-ish, but I don't think it just the reward doesn't seem worth it.
No, and especially for a format as powerful as cEDH, we're going to notice a theme with this where there's not going to be a lot of toxic cards, and we're not going to see a lot of the cards that reward you for having poison counters on other people.
Right. Those cards will probably be good in Commander and maybe other formats, but they're not going to be good in CEDH.
Like
I don't think.
draft,
Yeah, like
and
draft,
standard.
sealed,
Yeah.
Limited.
Is Standard still a format? Did they
Standard-
give up yet?
No, they're still
They're still
living on a
trying.
prayer.
They're
Okay.
still trying.
They're still living on a prayer. Apparently, that's what holds Magic together. I don't know. So, doesn't seem like it to me.
What else does this card do, though, besides
So
being...
this card is already basically seen play in Winota as Mother of Runes and Giver of Runes too. This one is one that does trigger Winota when you attack.
It is not a human, so it has the significant upside of triggering Winota on attacks, even though it has the significant downside of being worse than Mother of Runes or Giver of Runes.
That is true.
It is. It's a mana plus a tap it, right? Oh no, that's a Phyrexian.
It's
So
a
it's 2 life
Phyrexian,
and
yeah.
tap it. So that 2 life is not gonna. That's
no,
not gonna
you're
really
in
be
decks
relevant.
where
But it is.
it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's technically worse. We just talked over each other a lot. That was my fault. I apologize.
It's fine. I just
was gonna keep on going with it and kind of making a bit.
hopefully we
I'm not
won't
gonna let
have
you
it
talk. I'm
echo,
gonna keep on-
but
okay.
I think we probably will.
All right. It's a legendary creature, though. Is this worth it ever as a commander?
No.
No. Okay. We don't have to talk about that. Then.
No,
Okay.
I don't need Mother of Runes in the command zone. I feel like there's just better things I want in the command zone. Maybe we'll talk about one of those a little bit later for Mono White. I don't know.
But yeah, I agree. This is a Winota tryable card. I don't know if it's going to be like incredible, but it's worth trying. And yeah, it's got to be good. Like a third Mother of Runes is just good enough.
I can't be
And this
bad,
does some
right?
extra stuff.
So our next card is Cankerbloom. This is 1 and a green for a creature Phyrexian fungus.
Good. All right. I'm glad it's at least a fungus, so the name makes sense.
Right, yeah. This is a 3/2. It has an ability for 1 generic mana.
What? Wait, I can't let that slide.
What?
It does not make sense.
Why not?
Canker bloom doesn't make sense because fungi don't bloom. The fruiting
Yeah,
body doesn't
that's
bloom.
I just meant it was like a
That's true.
gross, goopily name. That's all. But I see what. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Well,
Fine.
'cause
Yeah, it's not-
canker
it's
is
not-
Well, at least it's goopily.
Yeah,
if
it's a
fungus.
goopily word. It's a goopily fungus.
And
but-
cankers are like your teeth, so I don't know how that
This
makes
thing
any
probably
sense
doesn't
with
even
the
have
fungus.
teeth, right?
I'm looking at
Do you
this.
see any teeth?
I don't see any teeth. Do you
Well,
see
it's
any teeth?
important to look to make sure the fungus don't
We
have
have
teeth.
to see.
If the fungus have teeth, that
they
could
could
mean
be
something.
serrated. They could be like flatter, like an omnivore.
Canker has to do with plenty of things that aren't teeth.
Canker isn't a teeth thing. It's
Oh,
a
you're
lip
right.
thing.
Like a canker sore.
Canker sore is a lip thing.
Right, but I'm saying canker is a word in general. This is a word that is separate from just medical application.
What does it mean?
it means lip.
No, it doesn't.
Canker
I
sore,
think it's just
lip
like your
sore.
whole mouth area because it doesn't mean like your teeth and then your
We
lips
try to guess what it means.
and eyes and ears and tips and
Yeah, I
teeth.
think it means lip. I'm gonna
Yeah,
go
I
with
think-
lip.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Thanks for coming out, Tyler.
What does this card do?
So- all right, so this card has text. For 1 mana, you can sacrifice it and choose one. Destroy an artifact, destroy an enchantment, or proliferate.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is Cathar Commando, kind of.
Yeah, it's worse because it doesn't have flash.
Right.
But there's a green one that's a werewolf that was printed in a recent
Yes.
set that does see play.
And
that
that-
this is strictly better than.
I don't know about
Outland
strictly
Liberator?
because Outland
Yes.
Liberator. That one transforms into a creature that can make that effect all
No,
the time.
strictly better because you don't have to track day and night for the rest of the game.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
okay.
a strict
That's a
upgrade.
great point.
You're right about that.
strictly better.
Yeah, no, okay, I agree with you there.
Yeah.
This card's great. I think this card's going to see some play. Although it is strange that what's the other one? The 1 mana, the Caterpillar. What's the Caterpillar?
Caustic Caterpillar.
That's a card that I always wish kind of saw a little bit more play, especially in like a Ranger Captain world. I feel like being able to get Caustic Caterpillar would be great.
Haywire Might also is in this
Haywire
same
Might's
boat.
the same
and
boat.
Also costs 1, not 2.
Yes.
So to me, this is more akin to Rex Siege because you're ultimately paying 3 to activate it. In decks that I play, which is pretty much just Kinnan, I still want Rex Siege because I want the ETB.
Yeah. Maybe if you're playing like Thrasios Tevish Zot, where like the proliferate might come up, maybe that's something. Thrasios Tevish
See,
Zot's a
I
deck.
disagree. I feel like the proliferate is not
Proliferate.
really proliferate.
I thought you said proliferate.
Proliferate.
That sounds funner.
It does. It does sound much funner.
Proliferate.
Yeah. Proliferate. I think that the least relevant text on this card is the proliferate.
Oh, sure.
yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think
definitely.
it's gonna come up like ever. Like I feel like even if you are playing Lord Windgrace or
Oh yeah, I definitely
Tevish,
agree.
like,
But
I
I'm
don't-
saying that's the only reason why I can imagine you ever putting this deck in the first place. If the proliferate means anything, because otherwise there's just like other better options. Unless proliferate might do something in your
Well,
deck.
yeah. I mean, now you're in a color combination that has Beseiju and
Right.
Nature's Claim,
just
like the
better
1 mana
options.
options
Yeah.
for this.
But it's in the realm of playability. It's like other cards
you
that
want-
see play.
If you are maybe playing like Timda and like the creature body matters too, that could also.
Forever argument. Small creature. You can play Nintendo. I use that argument all the time.
All right, well, our next card here is Soulless Jailer. This is 2 mana for an artifact creature, Phyrexian Golem. Exclusively talked about Phyrexian cards so far. It's an 0/4. It says permanent cards in graveyards can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast non-creature spells from graveyards or exile. This card's fucking nuts.
This is interesting. It's a bad rate. 2 mana is not great because this is kind of like
Grafdigger's
Digger's
Cage.
But it's much worse because that also blocks libraries, whereas this is only graveyards.
yes, that is true.
True.
That is
It
true.
blocks spells from exile, I think, too, right?
It is from exile too, so you also do stop food chain.
The only reason I think why this is maybe considerable, obviously, it's Winota. This can be played in Winota. This is an effect that Winota wants, but it doesn't stop the part of
Grafdigger's Cage
that Winota doesn't want. But it does stop the other stuff because obviously Winota wants to use the top of library stuff. So maybe this sees play there, but I'm still not sure. I'm not sold on it.
I think after recently putting together a non-white Stax deck in rough Stax colors, I feel like this is still something else that helps boost those archetypes.
I can see that.
Like a green-black is not a very supported Stax deck if you're not playing Nath.
Yeah.
So you're kind of limited on options. So having like another way to stop Underworld Breach wins, I think is 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Speaking of 2-color Stax decks that aren't in good Stax colors, our next card is Glissa Sunslayer.
I wonder why this is on your mind, Cameron.
Yeah. So this is a green, and a black for a 3/3 legendary Phyrexian zombie elf. It has First Strike and Death Touch, the legendary combo right there. And when she deals combat damage to a player, you choose one. You draw a card and lose a life, you destroy an enchantment, or you can remove up to 3 counters from target permanent.
This is kind of cool, I think.
I think it's terrible.
You think it's?
I think it's absolutely awful.
Yeah.
Cards in cEDH that cost 3 mana and say when this deals damage but don't have haste are just not
Yeah.
good.
No, so here's part of the problem is that we were a little bit starved for like really good cEDH commanders, so this became an option for what we are going to be playing on the channel here.
Sure, yeah,
Not only that, but also my casual deck is Glissa, the second Glissa, the trader. So naturally, I wanted to.
This is sounding increasingly personal, Cameron.
It really is more on a personal thing, but like it's not the worst, right? Like
It's not the worst. It does a couple things. It draws cards at a pretty poor rate, but it draws them nonetheless. Second, in a Ristic Study world, which more and more lately, I feel like that's the type of cEDH I've been playing, that destroy a target enchantment effect might come up kind of much. I don't even remember what the other ability is. I don't think it's very good.
So it removes 3 counters from a permanent, and there's actually a couple things that
That's
makes
nothing.
this okay. So there are things that have upkeep costs where you put counters on them, like Infernal Darkness. Listen to this.
Oh.
Yeah, remember this card? Yeah, 2 and 2 black for an enchantment. Cumulative upkeep. What is that word? Cumulative.
How do you say this word?
Cameron, you say this word correctly all the time.
I never say this word. I always go around saying this word.
Cumulative?
Cumulative? Yeah, no. Well, I've never said that. You can go through all of the footage and play to win.
never said
You can go through all of the footage you played away for the past 3 years now, and I've never said cumulative on the channel.
Cumulative.
I just
You
say
got it.
on my upkeep.
Yeah.
So it has cumulative upkeep.
There you go.
You pay a black and a life. All mana producing lands pay black instead of their normal mana. So you can kind of it's kind of like your Blood Moon that you can increasingly make cheaper for yourself if you're able to get in with Glissa.
That is something that this card does. Yes.
The problem is the color combination does not have any good ways to force Glissa to get in.
Yeah.
But you the main reason is that you have card advantage in the command zone. You can get in like a Timna fashion, only for Glissa, unfortunately. But it's card draw.
It's something. It's not nothing. It's not great though.
Agreed.
Moving on.
Moving on. Well, we're going to stay on the theme of other Phyrexians that we will be playing as commanders from this set. This is Elish Norn, Mother of Machines. 4 and a white for a legendary creature, Phyrexian Praetor. This is a 4/7 with Vigilance. Very familiar so far. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Permanents entering the battlefield don't cause abilities of permanents your opponents control to trigger. So this is 2 cards stapled on top of each other.
What are the cards?
It's it's Panharmonicon
That's what it is.
and Torpor Orb.
There we go.
Torpor Orb. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
We got there.
This one's interesting. I think as a commander, it does a couple things really nicely. It shuts off Thassa's Oracle and Dockside Distortions, which is the big one. And in a command zone, we haven't seen that yet. So that is something relevant that it does. I really don't know how great that is. This is like a 5-mana sorcery speed commander. That's not excellent. And the effects that you have to play with Elish Norn to get the bonuses that she delivers, I feel like there's just not a ton of relevant ones in cEDH. There's some
Leona Relic Warder.
Leona Relic Warder type of effects that make it pretty good. Make some of your removals 2-for-1s and stuff, but it feels a little slow. I feel like it's not quite as good as something like a Heliod, but the effect is really unique on a commander, so I think it's worth exploring a little bit.
Do you want to add that Torpor Orb is creatures only? This is permanents
That's
entering
relevant.
the battlefield.
Yeah.
So that is relevant. But also, its permanents entering the battlefield don't cause abilities of permanents to trigger. So that means they don't trigger it themselves either. So this does shut down Thassa's Oracle and other relevant things.
That's what I said. Did it sound like
Did
I
you
said
say
that?
that?
I said that, but maybe it sounded like I said the opposite of that. I said, yeah, it shuts off things like Dockside Distortion and Thassa's Oracle.
I'm sorry. I
That's okay.
missed
You're
that.
not paying attention. I'm kind of boring. I don't know why I said that. But yeah, that is one of its biggest, I think, pulls is that it shuts off Thassa's Oracle and Dockside Extortionist, which are the 2 most played creatures in our format right from the command zone.
Oh, no, not an S% and all. That's a cast.
No,
That's
yeah, it's not
an
S%.
ETB.
No.
5 mana is a lot, though.
All right, so the next one here is Atraxa Grand Unificer.
It has to be how that's
Unifier.
pronounced. Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Yep, Unifier. That's what it is. I don't know. Artificer, Unificer. I don't know. So this is 3, a green, a white, a blue, and a black for a 7/7 legendary Phyrexian Angel with Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink. When Atraxa enters the battlefield, reveal the top 10 cards of your library. For each card type, you may put a card of that type from among them and put it in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I didn't read it exactly verbatim, and that's why I got tripped up, but I fixed it.
You did great, Kim.
Thanks.
This card's great. Well, it's not great, but it's a food chain outlet.
That's why it's great.
That's why it's great. The only main issue with it is you're not in red, which is kind of a bummer. But if you can make infinite creature mana with food chain, you can flicker this in and out, and throughout many times go through your whole deck, and you can get all the cards from your deck and put it into your hand. That's pretty good. The issues with this one is it's 7 mana, and it doesn't do anything until you cast that 7 mana. Why not just play first chain food sliver? Like, why not just play the first sliver instead? Because that one is 5 colors and what?
First chain food sliver.
First chain food sliver. That's what it is.
We've said that so many times.
Why not just play the first sliver? Because first sliver is 5 colors. It's 5 mana. If you want a commander that doesn't do anything besides that, I would say this one actually kind of does something. If you want to grind, you're in like heavy green, you can get the 7 mana kind of easily and just kind of cast this for value. It'll draw 3 or 4 cards. It has a huge body. You can put a lot of pressure on people. That 7 mana is, like I said already, it's a lot, but this kind of does something, whereas First Sliver doesn't do anything, really.
You cascade into a counterspell, then
Yeah.
you have the same stats, a 7/7, but that one doesn't have, flying, death touch, and lifelink, which the vigilance and lifelink are like the 2 most relevant parts on the card.
Yeah, that's huge.
Get yourself back into an ad nauseum situation if you need to.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's probably some other things that this commander does that we haven't even seen yet. The fact that its ability is so abusable, if you can repeat any type of ETB or something, I'm sure there's going to be some other things you can do with Atraxa.
There aren't any good blink cards, are there?
Yeah, they can't be now.
Do you think that it's better to have black than red in the 4-color decks? Like, where do you pit this against
Omnath,
the
not-
Omnath?
Yeah.
Not in food chain, I don't think, because Squee is just so good. But
Squee is good, but also Demonic Consultation is really
Like
good.
Demonic
This is true.
Consultation
Tainted
and
Pact.
Tainted Pact, like, for me, are like really solidified black being one of the better food chain colors.
I would say one of Squee's good reasons for why it's good is because you can entomb for it. So if you're not playing black with this Squee loses half a point.
yeah, true.
But the Tainted Pack line is much more dangerous when you don't have Squeeze. So kind of same thing the other way. If you don't have 3 targets that you might hit before you hit the food chain, there's a chance that you don't hit any of them before you hit chain, because in the other deck you only run 2. So that is something. It's close. I'm not sure which one's better. I would say black tutors are better than red tutors, so maybe that's a difference that way. But
Generally, I mean, it's really just you lose out on Dockside, Extortionist, and Squee.
And Dockside is huge, especially if you're in a food chain deck and you're making infinite creature mana. Dockside kind of solves all your problems of like wanting to make sure that you can back up your stuff afterwards if you need to. You know what I mean?
You might only need like 2 treasures.
Right, but Dockside makes that super, super easy. There are other things that do it, but Dockside's just the best at it.
It's the best.
Losing that sucks. But other than that, other than all of those issues that we just talked about, Atraxa seems really great and good.
Yeah, seems like another good option that you have for this period.
Yep. All right.
So the last commander that we're going to be playing is Ovika, Enigma Goliath, and a Goliath it is. This is 5, a red and a blue for a 6/6 legendary creature, Phyrexian Nightmare. Every single creature we talked about is a Phyrexian.
Hell yeah.
Flying, ward, 3 mana, and pay 3 life. That's really expensive. And it also says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create X 1/1 red Phyrexian goblin creature tokens, where X is the mana value of that spell. They gain haste until end of turn. So the whole thing is this is a dramatic scepter, Isochron scepter.
Yeah, this
outlet.
is
It's an outlet.
Yeah, it sure is an outlet. This already exists in Is It? I don't know if it's better than the god. What's the god's name?
Keranos?
Nope. Is it a god? Maybe it's not a god.
What on earth are you talking about?
It for 4 mana, the Locust God. No, what's the other one that came with the Locust God? For 4 mana, it can draw and discard. And it can make a flying with haste.
That is the Locust
The
God.
Locust God. The Locust God does this.
Yeah.
Is also a Scepter outlet. And I'm not sure that it's better than that, but it does do a similar thing.
Yeah, this one doesn't draw your deck. Instead, you just keep going through the loop and you just attack with creatures that way.
So probably worse.
So it's worse because the other one makes the creatures and draws through a lot of your deck.
Yeah, you can draw through
And
your
cost
cards
less.
and like get
And
more
cost less.
interaction.
Yeah. But so it's like something else that's good but worse, but it's still good.
It's harder to deal with. I
Yeah,
mean,
harder to deal with. Ward,
Ward 3 already is very high.
Well, it's Ward 3 life.
no, it's Ward 3
it's
and
Ward
3 life.
Oh,
Right.
it's both.
But the deal with it doesn't matter, right? If you have your infinite scepter combo set up, then you can just recast it if it gets dealt with.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah. Yes, you are correct. The ward doesn't really
matter.
Yeah, matter. Well, it makes it difficult more. Yeah, it doesn't really matter because even if they do, yeah, you're right. Even if they do get rid of it, you just cast it again because you have infinite mana for the reasons why it's good. But
Right.
I guess one thing that it has over the Locust God is its actual ability generates things without investing more mana. Whereas the Locust God, you have to invest more mana to get those things if you want to play it fair.
Again,
which is
if
gonna
you are
happen
going
sometimes.
through an infinite loop, creating infinite mana, it doesn't matter
Loop's
as much.
separate, but when you have to grind and the loop's not working out, this one maybe grinds a little bit better. I'm not even
feel
sure that's
like-
true though, because card advantage, although that one's it's draw 2, discard 1, so it's not the best card advantage, but it's just still card advantage.
I'm much more excited for this card in like casual settings.
Sure.
But because in cEDH, I'm like, well, I would rather just play Jessica Crown, right? I get the same thing in my command zone plus card advantage too. So, but otherwise, we'll see it next week.
It's definitely top 30 viable Izzet commanders in cEDH.
I can't argue that. Yeah, top 30 for sure. Definitely. Definitely.
Great news. You said we were on the last commander, but in fact, there is one more.
Oh, that's true. There is another creature. I knew I was going to do this. This one's not on Mox Field at the time of recording yet. One more creature. This is Unctus, Grand Meditect.
Uncutus.
Uncutus. Is a legendary artifact creature, Phyrexian Vidalkin, 2/4. Other blue creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes tapped, draw a card, then discard a card. Other artifact creatures you control get +1/+1, and for a Phyrexian blue mana, until the end of turn, you can have target creature you control become a blue artifact in addition to its other colors and types. But you can only activate it at sorcery speed.
I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what this does. What is this for?
I can tell you what it
Give
is.
it to me.
So I'm not sure how many blue creatures there are that do this, but there is at least one, and I think closer to like 3 blue creatures that tap to untap another target permanent, or I think one of them says just creature.
Fate Stitcher.
Fate Stitcher is the big one that can target themselves. So it taps, it triggers Uncutus. You get to loot, and then its ability resolves and it untaps itself. So you can loot your entire deck and sculpt a hand from your whole deck of as many cards as you have in hand to begin with.
Okay.
So I think the idea here being that you are manually removing your entire deck to set up for a Thorical win, and say you do this with 3 cards in hand to begin with, you can be sure that at the end of that entire loop, the cards that you have in hand are Thessa's Oracle, Pact of Negation, and whatever other free counter magic.
Okay.
You're
Force
running.
of Will and a blue
Yeah,
card.
that's
Well,
something.
yeah, Force of Will and another blue card, sure, if you have 4. But point being, you can sculpt the perfect hand that allows you to win at that moment, as long as you get one of these guys down. But there's no great haste enablers in blue, so this is a very telegraphed win.
Yeah, I guess it makes you have a couple of creatures that are like Hermit Druids basically, and you get to play mono blue. Whereas you play them, if you get to untap with them, you'll win with it more likely, right?
Basically,
If you untap with
that's
the
the
combo,
thought.
most likely you can win. with it,
you have
Okay.
to untap. So
You
like
have to
again, like
untap.
Tyler said, it is a very telegraphed
Yeah.
win. I don't know. Maybe play like Aether Vial, and you can help sneak some of these creatures in a little bit more, so
That's
that it's a
something.
little bit more surprising too.
I think this is a deck where if you're trying to build a cEDH version, it's one of those rare ones that actually calls for Lightning Greaves and stuff like that.
yeah. Damn. Why do we have to ban Flash?
Oh god.
That would make this deck
That would make
playable.
this the best deck in the
Yeah.
format, and not any others.
Yeah.
The big problem here is that in blue you just don't have good ways to tutor for these creatures.
Yeah.
Because blue does not have creature tutors. So like, what are you gonna do? Like run Drift of Phantasm so that you can transmute for a 4-drop?
Yeah.
No, that's a 3-drop, isn't it?
It is a 3-drop. Yeah, it is 3-drop.
yeah.
Your blue ways to tutor for creatures are very limited, especially if they're not artifact creatures, which these aren't. So, I see what it does. It does something. It's a combo that's worth thinking about. Technically, those are the guidelines for what makes a cEDH deck, but. Yeah, that's all. We don't have to be too negative about it. I don't have to
No,
keep on talking
right?
about
We
why
don't
it's
have to
not
talk
good.
about like why you're gonna have people say why aren't you playing Urza or something like that. So yeah, we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah, let's move on.
we're
It's a
gonna
great
move-
card. If you love it, I love it for you.
We're gonna move on to our single sorcery here. This is a card that I don't know. It's Gleeful Demolition. It's 1 red for a sorcery. You destroy target artifact. If you controlled that artifact, create 3 1/1 red Phyrexian Goblin creature tokens.
So this is Kuldotha Rebirth, except you can use it on attack mode. This card already sees play in like Razakath decks because if you need like more extra creatures to tutor for, this is like 1 mana, make 3 creatures, and this one can kill your opponent's artifacts. This is like great in like very, very, very low color Razakath deck.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean 3 box Bodies for Razaketh is really great for 1 mana on 1 card. So once you're done with your Mana Crypt,
Yeah.
you can get that out of the way.
Something else that's like weird and interesting is that if you play this in Winota, you can get rid of a Grafdigger's Cage or get rid of one of your mana rocks and make 3 Winota attacking bodies for 1 mana. That's kind of good. Maybe
This is like the biggest like fuck you.
Yeah.
The sideboard card in Winota.
This is a perfect sideboard card for Winota. I feel like.
Yeah.
Not that we get them, but
Still probably doesn't come into the deck until a Braid is already in there. But
yeah, that's true. I play a Braid in my version though. So
yeah,
maybe
no,
I'll play this
I
too.
feel like the decks, unless you have a reason to sacrifice the 1/1s, like Braid is just the card you'd want to go for. Instant speed.
But Winota, 3 bodies, it's really good. The
Three
upside,
dudes,
the upside's
seriously?
that. 3 dudes, seriously.
we have a singular instant here. This is minor misstep. This is 1 blue
boy.
for an instant. Counter target spell with mana value 1 or less. Who wants to
A
start?
lot of chatter about this one. Who wants
of
to go
chatter.
first? Anyone?
my heart fills with joy when I see 1 mana counter spells, and then swiftly deflates when I see that they suck.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I don't think this makes the cut because I think Dispel is just better. I think there's enough other narrow 1 blue mana counter spells that are just better. I don't think it'll see.
So
real
here's
play.
the thing. I think they're all better.
Yeah, I
is
think
the thing.
specifically Swan Song and An Offer You Can't Refuse stop basically all the things that this stops while still being able to stop a ton of other stuff. And then there's also things like Spell Pierce that do that the same, and Dispel and other things that do that for 1 mana.
Yeah, it's the range that they have for being able to play it for 1 mana. Like, this is not a card, although the name is similar and there are a couple of similar numbers on this card, I like to consider this card more like a spell snare as opposed to an actual mental misstep. Mental misstep is good because you can do it on your turn 0.
It's free. That's the reason why Mental Misstep's good.
Yeah,
Not because it counters 1 mana things. It's good
No.
because it's free. The fact that it counters 1 mana things, that's just like also
This is
part of
going to counter a lot fewer turn 1 Mystic Remoras than I think a lot of people think it might. Already, Spell Snare is one of the last counter spells that I personally like to go for. I know there are a lot of good cards that can counter, but again, the range of the spells it can counter is very small, whereas, cards like Dispel and Spell Pierce can counter ad nauseums and can get you out of a lot more situations than something like this card can.
The way that I think about this one for cEDH specifically too is that this one doesn't really stop as many threats as something like a Spell Snare does. Spell Snare stops Underworld Breach and Thassa's Oracle and Dockside Extortionist, and these are kind of like threats, whereas this one can really only stop mainly interaction. It can stop other Spell Pierces, Dispels, Offer You Can't Refuse. It's good at stopping those things pretty well, but there's better things that stop those things pretty well. In formats like Legacy, maybe something that like this is a little bit better, where stopping a 1 mana creature like a Delver of Secrets, I don't even know if that reference is relevant anymore, but stopping like a 1 mana threat in a 1v1 format, that's like a real thing. But in our format, countering the Esper Sentinel is not as good as you think when you have to pay 1 mana for it, and especially when more often than not, like you're going to be behind in turn order. You're not going to have the mana up in time for this. There's going to be people, when you have 1 up, people are playing 2s. So you're going to be behind trying to play this. And the reason why counter spells are good is because they can hit everything. They're good at countering many different things. This being super specific, I think I don't think it's very good. I think it's a trap, but I'm happy to be proven wrong.
Oh, I'll be excited if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Because I do really like 1 mana counter spells in my decks, but
Yeah, but I mean, if you want to find out if you should be running this in your deck, just every time you cast a Mental Misstep from here until the end of time, ask yourself, would I still be doing this if I had to pay 1 mana for it?
Yeah, the answer is probably going to be
probably no, right? Yeah. So, all right, let's move past that. I'm done with the negativity. All right, we're gonna start off with the artifact that's not on Mox Field first, so that I get that one out of the way. This is a really cool one. This is Synthesis Pod. So this is an artifact that is 3 and a Phyrexian blue mana, and for 1 and a Phyrexian blue, you can tap it to exile a spell you control. Target opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a card with mana value equal to 1 plus the exiled spell's mana value. Exile that card, then that player shuffles. You may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost.
Yeah, this one is interesting because it's Birthing Pod, but like a backwards inverse
on the
Birthing
stack.
Pod. Yeah, it's like on this. It's very interesting. The main thing that I think is kind of cool about this is if you're playing something like a Tasigur that has a 6 mana value and you cast it for 1 mana, it's a spell that you can exile, and hopefully maybe if one of your opponents are playing something like Appear into the Abyss, you can cast their Appear into the Abyss out of their library. Now that's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through. It's a 3 mana thing that you have to put into play. play and then, be able to still do stuff afterwards.
And your pod composition has to be
super
one.
relevant.
And it's target opponent.
And it's target
It
opponent.
is target
So
yeah.
you have to know which opponent.
You have to know which opponent is playing the peer.
Not Winota.
This card is a card that it does something cool. I'm not exactly sure what, but it looks like other cEDH cards being Birthing Pods, so I kind of want to look at it. I have no idea where the ceiling is on something like that.
Well, the way it's worded, Drannith Magistrate shuts it down too.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
like
Card
one of
sucks.
the most played white cards in the format, shuts us down. So you're gonna run into that quite a bit.
I do think it's neat, but I think we're on Chaos Wand energy here, where the mere fact that there's so much variability and you really don't know what you're gonna get makes it unplayable just because you can't rely on it to consistently add value.
Yeah, if it was your own deck, we're talking. That's
Oh,
really
yeah.
something. That would be really funny.
Yeah, now we're talking about like polytyrant stuff.
Right, yeah, but you being your opponent's deck, it just the Magical Christmas Land has to be so incredible for it to line up just right. And then outside of that, maybe in like a counter war or something like that, someone's countering a spell of yours, you exile it from the stack and hope to get something outside of your opponent's deck. But I just think there's better things you could be spending your mana on, right?
Yeah,
Maybe not.
I mean, sometimes you're just gonna flip through and get a deck tech of what your opponent's playing,
Yeah.
and then shuffle up.
For 4 mana for the first activation, yeah, I think that there's better stuff to be
Yeah,
playing.
4 mana is just so much too. At that point, you should be really pivoting to winning the game, not kind of continuing to grind value.
Yeah. So unless you can guarantee that this thing gets you something, I'm not enthused.
Yeah, not enthused. Okay.
All right. The next card is Glimmer Lens. This is 1 and a white for an artifact equipment. It says for Mirrodin. How do you feel about the exclamation points in?
It's fine. It feels like it's all a pop punk band to me. Like it's like a big pop punk band where they just have like an exclamation point, like Panic at the Disco. That's what I think of.
I think it is tacky, and I am certain that the same person that decided all hounds were dogs at Wizards is the same person that thought this was acceptable to print on a card.
Okay, so this is for Mirrodin. We should say what this does. When this equipment enters the battlefield, you get to create a 2/2 Rebel creature token and attach it to the equipment. When equipped creature and at least one other creature attack, draw a card, and it has an equip cost for 1 and a white. So again, this card screams Winota to me. It's a 2 mana creature that's not a human, so you get to trigger, and you're probably attacking with a 0 mana or a 1 mana creature alongside of this.
So it's kind of like a Dark Confidant. You're going to be like a 2 mana creature that draws a card every turn. Is that what the thought is here?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, in that deck.
Yeah, in Winota specifically. But Winota is getting to a point now where the spots are getting real tight. I don't know if something like this makes the cut over some of the other 2-drops. I see what you mean, though. I like what it does, though. The card draw is really great.
It's true that it doesn't have haste. That is relevant.
The not having haste part is something. But I like what this does in maybe other decks, too, is like a Tymna deck, like a Blood Pot, something like that. Does that want something like this,
Getting
too?
extra cards is good. If you're playing Arden in any capacity, this card might be something you want to consider,
Definitely,
too.
yeah. Even if you're just in like kind of any low-color white deck, I feel like any type of card advantage is like really good right now, especially like a 2 mana, like a Dark Confidant is good in white decks, I feel like.
I would want something like that too.
Yeah, and that's kind of what this one does. So yeah, I think this one is going to be more playable than it looks at first glance.
Plus, you have the equipment creature upside of if something does happen to it, then you can just put it on something else for its mana cost. So I don't know. I kind of like it. All right, next card. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about that, Tyler?
No.
Okay. The Filigree Silex is next. This is 2 mana for a legendary artifact. It has 3 tap abilities. First tap ability lets you put an oil counter on it. The second tap ability makes you sacrifice it to destroy each non-land permanent with mana value equal to the number of oil counters on the Filigree Silex. Its final one makes you remove 10 oil counters from among permanents you control and sacrifice the Silex to deal 10 damage to any target.
Don't worry about that last part.
Yeah, that last part. This is Ratchet Bomb. This is a second Ratchet Bomb. Ratchet Bomb is a card that exists that I guess I used to see it a lot more than I do now, but it's still like maybe a playable card. It can kill a lot of things at once. Gets rid of treasures and fast mana. You were saying that earlier.
It is a strictly better Ratchet Bomb, I think we determined. Yeah, because it has more words.
It does have those words that are never going to come up, but sometimes you're going to be able to finish a player off. They're going to ad nauseum too low, and you're going to say, haha, I got you for 10 extra damage, or you're going to be able to kill a creature that's coming at you for lethal. Not often. That's not going to happen often. It's
Bullets of Citadel is in the same boat.
Yeah, definitely. It can come up.
There's a lot of really good 3-drop creatures in the format too. So like if you have time and you're getting this up there, you can deal with like Opposition Agent, like Ranger Captain, and force people to do things with their creatures then too. So
especially in decks that don't have easy removal, like green decks and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the vast majority of the time though, you're certainly only cracking that 4-0 to destroy fast mana. Right.
Yeah.
I think fast mana is the big one. Maybe if you're really patient, you want to, like, if there's a couple of Mystic Remoras, can it kill enchantments?
Yeah, it's all non-land permanents.
It's blast zone.
Yeah, so there's a couple of times where you maybe like wait a turn, you can kill 2 Mystic Remoras, and that'll definitely be worth it or something like that.
We're going to move on to the enchantments, and the first one is All Will Be One, the namesake card of the set. This is 3 and 2 red for an enchantment that says whenever you put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, All Will Be One deals damage. I can't read today.
Just today.
Today?
Whenever you, I'm going to let that slide. Whenever you put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, All Will Be One deals that much damage to target opponent, creature an opponent controls, or planeswalker an opponent controls.
Yeah, so it's kind of War Storm Surge for counters in a weird way.
Yeah, this one is it is a combo A+B with like a whole bunch of other bad cards that maybe Cameron will put on screen right now.
Yeah,
they'll be up here.
Flame Surge.
Doesn't matter what they are.
Quest for the Flame.
Who
of
cares?
some
Yeah,
kind.
They're all made up.
They're made up. Basically, if you have this and one other permanent of several types and deal damage to someone, you can create a ricocheting effect and shooting out the whole table. That can be pretty good. There's like Twin Flame Dualcaster Mage. That's a mono red combo that's like a little bit easier to do than this one. But if you're in some type of weird deck that's maybe playing Stax pieces and you're maybe like slow burning the table, I don't know if you've decided that you want to try like a group slug deck in cEDH, which eventually will get enough parts to do something pretty powerful. Maybe this is a combo for you.
You know, maybe Mono Red Prison will become a thing. And then
I know that's one of your favorite deck strategies,
well,
right?
in modern, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I'll be able to do that in
cEDH. Yeah,
at some
maybe.
point then.
Maybe not.
Maybe
Probably
not.
not.
Yeah, maybe not.
Probably not, but
Okay.
I'll hope.
Besides that, though, I don't know if it's doing anything else besides being a combo piece.
No,
right?
it's
Yeah.
just a combo
It's kinda
piece.
just a combo
is all
piece.
that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. A big do nothing 5-mana combo piece.
Yeah.
Maybe you can find ways to like synthesis pod into someone else's, and then you can.
Someone else got a 6-drop in their deck.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, yeah, that's good. True.
All right, we're gonna move on. Our other enchantment here is Skrelvs. I forgot how to say this in the 45 minutes or 30 minutes we've been talking.
What is it?
Skrelvs?
Skrelv.
Skrells.
Skrelv's Hive. This is 1 and a white for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. It also has Corrupted. As long as an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, creatures with Toxic you control have lifelink.
Yeah. What do you got? You can go first.
Tear it in half first. There you go.
Apparently might be good in Winota. I don't pilot Winota, and I really don't know what it takes to make the cut. To me, this seems too slow, personally. It costs 2 mana. It will make a thing that can't attack the turn after it comes down because that token itself doesn't have haste. So despite the fact that it's shitting out little 1/1s that you want to attack with in Winota, it takes 2 full turn cycles for you to realize the first benefit of this 2-mana spell. And my instinct in cEDH is that just doesn't cut it, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm kind of overall with you. I like it. I like that it's a Bitter Blossom effect. It does a little extra. That last line of text with the lifelink, that's probably never going to come up or be super relevant. The toxic aspect of it, you play, some of the decks play Inkmoth Nexus. Maybe you get someone with 10 counters. It's in the strategy of Winota. It's doing what Winota wants, which is creating Winota attackers, which is good. Casual Winota lists and casual commander. I think this is definitely going to be great, but I think I'm with you. It's just a little bit too slow. For me, I feel like I need shit to be doing stuff immediately in Winota. Like it needs to, the reason why I like things like Legion Warboss, which is like normally a weird cEDH card, the reason why it's so good in Winota is because it's good the turn that it comes out if Winota is already out, because it gets a trigger right away because the hasty token, or it assembles many tokens by like if you play Legion Warboss and then the next turn you play Winota, you already have 2 tokens. Whereas this, you have to play it, untap, get 1 token, untap again, then you get 2 tokens. So it's just it's at a lower rate, I think, than some of the other things, and it itself isn't a creature, which is kind of relevant. That
But for most of the reasons why Bitter Blossom is good, this card would be good too.
Yeah, in modern, this is probably good.
In modern,
is this good in modern?
Well, I mean, Bitter Blossom.
I guess Bitter Blossom's not good in modern anymore.
And like
Yeah,
Bitter
never
Blossom
mind.
makes flyers. Like the flying is really relevant
never mind.
on Bitter Blossom. But like if you are like playing Skull Clamp for whatever reason and you don't have black, like this is also a card that goes well with this. So if you're able to lean into more token synergistic strategies, I think this is something that might work out for you. There's a lot of ways where if you're consistently creating tokens, you can draw cards.
Yeah.
So maybe that's like down the line, I could see that having more upside too. But I understand where you guys are coming from. Like this is very slow.
What's the I'm blanking on the name, the Thopter, the red Thopter maker.
Lieutenant.
It has lieutenant.
Yeah.
What is it? We can cut this part out. You know what
We're
it
not
is.
going to, though.
He's playing Renotis, he's playing Bloodpod. It makes a factor with haste if you control your commander. It itself has haste.
How you spell lieutenant?
LIEU.
Really? Oh, wow.
Really? Oh, wow. I was way off.
I was way in left field.
That's what you sound like? It's wildly high.
Loyal Apprentice.
Loyal Apprentice. This is also just a worse Loyal Apprentice. Loyal Apprentice makes the token right away. It itself can attack right away. It's just like a worse Loyal Apprentice. That's all I wanted to say. Okay.
We have a couple Planeswalkers we're going to talk about. The first one is Tyvar, Jubilant Brawler. This is a black and a green for a legendary Planeswalker, Tyvar. It comes into play with 3 loyalty counters. It has a static ability that says you may activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures had haste.
It'd be great in that Uncuttist deck.
Oh, yeah. Fit this in. Its +1 says untap up to 1 target creature, and its -2 says mill 3 cards, then you may return a creature card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If you are playing in Golgari Hermit Druid colors, I feel like, and I don't play Hermit Druid, but I feel like this is a shoo-in.
Yeah, this is great in Hermit Druid. I mean, it's comparable to like Lightning Greaves. You know, it just is a haste enabler sort of for Hermit Druid. 3 mana versus 2 is a pretty big difference. But this can also reanimate the Hermit Druid, and that's pretty nice. It does a lot more. And the untapping.
Can reanimate a Thassa's Oracle.
It can reanimate a Thassa's Oracle. That's probably pretty good. A Dockside Extortionist. There are many good creatures that it could reanimate. Dockside is not that great. But yeah, I agree. In Hermit, and it's also like that was a bunch of words that didn't really make a lot of sense. But what I meant to say was Bloom Tender. If you're like in a Bloom Tender deck or something like that, if you're playing Elk and you can net mana with that ability, that can be kind of good. That's kind of, magical fairyland. But
Cephalid Illusionist.
Cephalid Illusionist.
I don't know. Like,
sure.
that's something else that deals with milling, and maybe you want to be able to get that back too.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. I understand what you're saying now. Because if you're in like a Hermit Druid type of deck, yeah.
That might be something that you want.
That might be something that you want. This is a little bit of a glue. It ties a lot of loose ends together from a couple different strategies that loosely relate. I think it's going to be interesting.
And you're playing in Mana Dork colors, so if you do get your Bloom Tender, this can also untap Mana Dorks too. So when you're not reanimating things, it's also netting you mana.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see lately, like what like a cEDH Planeswalker would have to look like, and I feel like this is kind of it. Like its static ability is relevant right away. Its +1 ability can sometimes help pay for itself, which is pretty good. Make it a lot cheaper than 3 mana if you're untapping the Dork that used to cast it. And its other ability is like a pretty substantial, like that can win you the game. That can get a Thassa's Oracle back or something like that. Like that upside it can be an ultimate. It's not going to feel like it because it's so tiny, but like it can do some really good things. So I'm excited to see where this card goes.
If we're just naming other cards that it goes well with, like Divining Witch, giving Divining Witch haste. If you have Thassa's Oracle in your hand, but Divining Witch is in your graveyard, you can reanimate the Divining Witch. You can pay 2 for that.
That's pretty good.
Get your thing, yeah.
Tap Oryx Herd.
Who?
Oryx Herd.
I don't know that one.
Notorious cEDH staple Oryx Herd, the 6 mana Oryx from
Not familiar.
What's it, Cold Snap?
It could have been.
Yeah, I believe you.
Yeah, I believe you.
It's just it doesn't have a tap ability as a creature. It's just nice to have it on tap so it can block.
Oh,
of course.
100%.
Yeah.
Pseudo Vigilance. Yeah, the best part of this card that we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
I think this does a lot. 3 mana is kind of expensive in cEDH. This is like that's just like kind of an expensive amount of mana. You could be casting like Necropotence or something like that. But I still think because it can kind of pay for itself by untapping mana dorks, like I said, I think that makes this one kind of interesting.
Cool. We have another Planeswalker, surprisingly, here. This is Jace the Perfected Mind. This is 2, a blue, and a Phyrexian blue for a legendary Planeswalker Jace. It has completed. Phyrexian mana can be paid with either blue or 2 life. If life was paid, this Planeswalker enters with 2 fewer loyalty counters. Its +1 ability says until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gets -3/-0, classic Jace ability. -2 says target player mills 3 cards. Then, if a graveyard has 20 or more cards in it, you draw 3 cards. Otherwise, you draw a card. And -X says target player mills 3 times X cards.
That's the one. That's the ability that we care about. That -X being able to kill itself and mill yourself kind of acts as another brain freeze. If you have Underworld Breach and Lion's Eye Diamond, you can keep on casting this and milling yourself with the ability, putting it back in the graveyard, recasting it because Underworld Breach is out. It acts as a second brain freeze. I think that's kind of neat.
Is it enough worse than brain freeze that it just doesn't get run, or
I'm thinking of it as like a second brain freeze where just like you just have another one of these effects. You're right, it might not see play because it is worse than brain freeze. I think brain freeze is better, storm is better, instant speed's better, but I haven't seen another card that does what brain freeze does except for like grinding station, and grinding station needs another little piece to work with it too.
No, if you have 4 mana for this, you can immediately mill yourself for 15.
Yeah,
which a lot of the times that's a not necessarily the highest brain freeze, but what the decks that would want this are trying to do is combo this with Underworld Breach to basically build your own ad nauseum.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it does get there. I think you probably don't ever cast it for the 4 mana cost, right? You cast it for the 3 mana cost. You neg X, where X is 3. You're milling 9. So if you're using an LED to cast it and you're escaping 3 cards to cast itself, then you're netting 3 additional cards to be able to escape something else with each cycle of it.
At that point, it fuels Underworld Breach, but you also want to make sure like you have other stuff. Like it can't. Only milling for 9. I've milled like myself for 30 and not been able to piece something together, right? Like there's like, in milling yourself for 9 is certainly a lot of cards, but you have to use a lot of them to
keep it going.
Yeah, right. Just to even cast one off Underworld Breach. So
it's just interesting that we have another one of these effects. We're getting towards the realm of like being like just like, I mean, getting towards. I'm just gonna say like we're getting towards the realm of like you can just be on Turbo Underworld Breach, but we're already there. You know what I mean? It might be nice to not have to demonic tutor for your brain freeze, and instead you would just have another, not have to cast a tutor for the brain freeze. Instead, you just have another copy of a different type of brain freeze. I think that redundancy ends up being a lot more powerful than people give credit for in cEDH.
Absolutely.
Do you think you're ever gonna mill someone for 3 cards and then draw 3? Do you think that's ever gonna come up?
I hope not. Maybe drawing 3 would be great, but no, probably not.
Probably not in this way. Yeah. Okay. We have a land.
Let's talk about a land.
Yeah, the Mycosynth Gardens. This is a land. It's a sphere. Is this our first sphere land?
Might be. I've never seen a sphere land.
What are the shapes of all the other lands? Just flat, right?
Flat, like the
They're
Earth.
like
yeah.
2D.
Oh God, why would you say that?
Yeah, lands are flat,
Yep.
like the Earth.
Just like, well, there you have it. This is the Play to Win's official stance. No, you can't take it back. You can't take it back.
Shit, I
It
already
is too
said it.
late. Yep. So this is against all science here. This is a sphere land.
All right.
You tap it to add a colorless mana. You can also pay 1 to tap it to add a mana of any color. You can also pay X and tap it to have the Mycosynth Gardens become a copy of target non-token artifact you control with mana value X or less.
Forever.
It stops right there.
It stays. You can have another copy of Thorn of Amethyst or another copy of some other artifact.
You
that's
just
really
tap
good.
it and it can be a second mana crypt for you.
Mana Crypt. That is, now functions as a Mana Crypt. I
On your
think this
next
card
turn,
might be
you have an
something.
extra one. I think it could be too.
Yeah, copying artifact sure is good. I mean, some decks run copy artifact, which costs 2 to do this, and using a land drop to do that instead, perfectly relevant. This is one of those lands that probably feels fine to pitch to Mox Diamond in the right situation, but in the wrong situation. In the right situation, it feels great to be playing it and copying one of your mana rocks or something. Yeah, it seems good.
It's really good with Seedborn Muse. If you can copy one of your big rocks and make even more mana.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, yeah, that's true. I even kind of like it even after Mox Diamond because you can turn it into a Mox Diamond. You don't have to discard another card.
Guess what deck probably wants to run this card?
What?
Cannon. Duh.
Oh, holy fucking shit! Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. If you're like a crop rotation deck, I feel like this is a little bit interesting as like a little extra one. It's kind of, if you're in like 3, 4, or 5 colors, maybe not, right?
Ooh, wait. Does it stop being a land, or it just starts being an artifact also?
It becomes a copy of target non-token artifact, so it is
Yeah,
no
okay, it does
longer
stop being
a
land.
It stops
Okay.
being a land, yeah. It taps to become a tapped version of the thing, so it's not great at copying mana rocks, but it's pretty good at copying Thorn of Amethyst or Stax effects or something like that.
I think there's a lot of like 1 and 2 color decks where it's almost totally free to just throw this in and have this be another mana rock for when you need it.
Nath. If I was still playing Nath, I feel like I would want to play this card.
Yeah.
Nath has a couple of artifacts that work as decent Stax pieces. This can bonus as making extra mana. It's a crop rotation deck. I think this, something like Nath might like.
Yeah.
Seems good.
Honorable mentions are the fast lands.
We're doing those at the end.
Yeah, we're doing them at the end.
Yeah, right on time.
'Cause I forgot to say them at the beginning.
Yeah, their fast lands are reprints. These see play in some decks. I think they should maybe see play in more decks. I think they're great. They're more often than not, they're going to be untapped mana sources. If you're playing a fourth land, we're like way in late game anyway. Who cares?
Yeah, we're looking at like really good in like the 27, 28 land count decks,
Yeah, I think this one's great.
especially if you're
These
trying
are
to
great.
go fast. Cool. Well, I'm glad we're petering out now because we don't have any other cards to talk about here. What do we think about this set, everybody? How do we feel about All Will Be One in general?
I think we maybe I hope we didn't come off too negative about the set. I think the set's awesome. The art direction is super cool. There's a lot of sweet cards that look like they'll be good in like standard and like regular casual commander and other formats. I feel like I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it doesn't have a lot for formats that I play and care about, so I'm not particularly excited about this one. I do think it's cool flavor wise. I like what's going on with the art. Absolutely, I'm with you on a lot of those elements, but I think this is probably one of the least cEDH exciting sets we've had in a while, to be honest.
That's probably true.
Which is fair. I mean, let's be honest. We've been spoiled over the past year by somebody in R&D who plays cEDH and has been printing these staples over the past 2 years.
And I also just want to stress that there's a lot of Phyrexian mana in this set, and we didn't talk about any of them being broken. So either we're like really wrong because those cards have been misevaluated in the past, or they did something really great and made that style of mana like playable and not broken, which I thought was like damn near impossible.
I think they did a good job of trying to fix Phyrexian mana, whereas now it gives you slight bonuses as opposed to making something like completely free.
Yeah, that was the issue. Is like the things like mental misstep.
Now it's like you still have to pay mana for the creature, but yeah, the ability can be free if you want it to.
And that was with the gods that they can be made indestructible if you pay the Phyrexian mana, which we didn't really talk about any of them because I don't know that any of them.
I don't think they're really good in cEDH.
But yeah, I overall I would agree with you, Tyler, that this set is not. Doesn't have the most staples for cEDH, really, and I don't know about any staples for cEDH, but I think that's like a good thing. Like I'm okay with cEDH kind of like having a couple months to breathe and figure itself out.
I'm just furious as a Kinnan player that I didn't get some fat green or blue idiot for my Kinnan deck that was like, come on, like now's the time.
The closest thing we got was that thing with Toxic, like the big dinosaur, but it's like not good. It's just like a
it's
keep.
not good.
Yeah, it's just bad.
Unless do you want another Thrun? There's another Thrun that they printed.
It's worse than the first Thrun.
It is, yeah.
Did we miss anything? Let us know.
Tell us in the comments below.
I don't want to hear it. Don't tell me.
Okay.
Well, that's fine. Just leave Tyler out.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support us directly, you can do so on Patreon, like our $100 patrons.
Demon of Razgriz and Baby Jeebus.
If you want to pick up any Play to Win merch, you can do that at our website, playtowinmtg.com.
If you want to support the channel without any additional cost to you, check out our affiliate links down below.
If you want to become an ostrich, ask our mom.
And if you want to see us on social media, you can do that at TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram for more content.
Thank you so much for watching.
See you next time.
Bye.
Justin,
Eli Richdy,
Jason Perkins,
Man Solo,
Nikola Marikovic,
Steven Schlichty,
That Green Guy,
Plantain Jackson,
Isaiah Burles. Oh, God. Shit. I'm sorry.
Michael Lyon,
Pedro,
Byron Wang,
C,
Kawaja A. Hamid,
Jacob Deppy,
CZ,
Michael Ballou,
Jan Wildfang,
Sleepy Jarvis,
Thomas Bueno,
Swampy McGee,
Lauren Connell,
David Nelson,
Vinny Blanca,
Jormax,
James Noon 845,
and Moxfield.
Moxfield.
We were a little too negative. Feel free to trim that shit down.
Yeah, some of the negative.
There's nothing. What else are we gonna talk about? This like we're not gonna be like lying. Like what are we gonna say? The cards are all good, or like talk about
You should
cards.
play these, right?
If we were talking about like only staples, I don't know if we would talk about any cards. Before we cut, which card of these do you think definitely sees play in a multiple of cEDH decks?
Multiple CDH
Yeah, like that
decks?
is like a playable cEDH card.
I saw 0.
Either they are their own deck, like Atraxa,
Which is still probably worse.
or there's one specific archetype that wants it.
What's your number one pick of the set? Cam, you go.
My number one pick for the set is definitely Tyvar, the Jubilant Brawler. Yeah, I think this card fits its niche incredibly perfectly, and I think that it is exactly what the decks are looking for once.
What about you, Tyler? What's your pick?
I guess Mycosynth Gardens. I think the artifact ability is pretty relevant. You don't want to be using filter lands like that for the most part, but That can do a lot in the right deck.
Dude, I'm honestly, I don't know. I think I'm going to be with you. I think Tyvar, but I'm not sure if I'm being a little too optimistic about the card. I'm not sure if it's actually good, because just 3 mana just does
I think
seem
you're
like a lot.
being more optimistic about the rest of the set.